piece in the New York Magazine looks into some pretty worrisome financial issues involved in BLM, Black Lives Matter. Now, there have been accusations against the founder, Patrisse Cullors, involving, essentially self-dealing, using some of the charitable donations to Black Lives Matter for her own purposes. Those were stories that I mostly ignored, brushed off. As we know, BLM has been attacked and targeted by the right wing since the very beginning. But all of a sudden, the New York Magazine came out with this piece that was well-researched, well-sourced, and was also written by an African-American journalist who has been a victim of police violence himself. And so I wanted to hear what his story was, what this story was, and what he found through his reporting. And the findings are worrisome, but I will say this. The biggest issue that I see is the lack of transparency in regard to the money that was raised by Black Lives Matter, and more importantly, where that money was spent. There could be an explanation for a lot of what was written here, but it's really difficult to find an explanation when there's a lack of transparency in regard to the money. So with that said, I do want to give you some specific details, some excerpts from the piece, and we'll start with what local activists have been saying about Black Lives Matter behind the scenes. Some local activists contend that little of the money raised at the national level makes its way to their organizations or to the families of Black people killed by police. In November of 2020, 10 chapters of the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation issued a public call for greater financial accountability. In fact, their statement said this, they were very clear. For years, there has been inquiry regarding the financial operations of Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, and no acceptable process of either public or internal transparency about the unknown millions of dollars donated to the organization, which has certainly increased during the time of pandemic and rebellion. And we're gonna get to specific numbers in just a moment. But in response to that criticism, in response to that statement, Black Lives Matter did what I think is the right thing. They finally were a little more transparent. Now, here's what we learned through the report that they released about a year ago. So the Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation said it had raised more than $90 million in 2020. It incurred $8.4 million in operating expenses, distributed $21.7 million in grants to more than 30 organizations, and retained some $60 million in its coffers. So that did not quiet the critics. In fact, it led to more questions, and unfortunately, it was not followed up with more transparency. And so, who are the critics? What are they saying? These two excerpts really stood out to me in the piece. And I do want to give credit to the reporter here, Sean Campbell, who did the reporting, who wrote this story. Please check out the full piece. We'll include a link in the description box. After the report was published, two activists in Ferguson, Missouri, Tory Russell and Michael Brown Sr., whose son was killed by a police officer there in 2014, posted a video demanding $20 million for local programs and organizers. The movement that has been catapulted into the limelight has forgotten about Ferguson and the freedom fighters who have literally given their lives to the struggle, Russell said. So that was one of the criticisms following the release of that report. This next one is the one I'm the most worried about. So a few weeks later, in March of 2021, two mothers of victims of police violence, Lisa Simpson and Samaria Rice, released a statement calling for Black Lives Matter and others to stop capitalizing on their suffering. We don't want or need y'all parading in the streets, accumulating donations, platforms, movie deals, etc., off the death of our loved ones, while the families and communities are left clueless and broken, they wrote. Don't say our loved ones' names, period. That's our truth. So a lot of money was raised. Where did the money go? Why is there a lack of transparency in regard to those very questions? And I think that the very victims of police brutality and police violence deserve to know. They deserve to know. Now, Patrisse Cullors, who was the head of Black Lives Matter, has since stepped down. She said she wanted to focus on other projects, speaking engagements. She's working on a book and all of that. And so there's the other issue of, well, who do we go to? Like, where's the accountability? This now feels like a leaderless movement. Justin Hansford, who's a law professor at Howard University, he's also the executive director of the Thurgood Marshall Civil Rights Center, argued this. He said, they tell a story that makes it seem like the creation of their hashtag was the start of the movement. I don't think they have directly told lies about their role, but they have a really inflated sense of self-importance in terms of the movement. And so there's been this disconnect between this national organization and the local chapters or the local activists and organizers. And that disconnect, that frustration, that lack of transparency has really led to a splintering within Black Lives Matter, according to this reporting. So there's also some issues in regard to possible self-dealing. Now, that is something that is being speculated on. That is not something that has been proven. I want to be abundantly clear about that. It's something that could have a clear explanation if there's more transparency. But unfortunately, there isn't transparency and people are left speculating or guessing as to what's really going on here. Aside from BLM Global Network Foundation, Cullors has started or helped lead several other organizations, including 3 related to criminal justice reform and prisoners' rights: Dignity and Power Now, Justice LA, and the Justice Teams Network. According to filings, money sometimes flows between the organizations. And so when you see that happening, and on top of that, there's a lack of transparency and a lack of accountability for the very activists and organizers on the ground who want answers to these questions, you're gonna run into problems. So for instance, in 2018, the Justice Teams Network received $400,000, a $400,000 grant to support work for Justice LA. From its website, Justice LA looks like an autonomous group, but users who click to donate are directed to a PayPal account for Dignity and Power Now. So obviously the money's flowing from all these various organizations that Cullors had founded. The organizations are linked through a person named Chrisman Bowers. He is listed as Dignity and Power Now's chief financial officer and as the treasurer of a local political committee, Reform LA Jails. In 2019, while working on an ultimately successful ballot initiative, Reform LA Jails collected more than $1.4 million in contributions. Now, where did the money go? $1.4 million is a lot, and people who donate deserve to know where that money is going. How is that money helping to advance police reform, to protect communities, to maybe even fund programs that help underprivileged youth? Well, more than half was paid out to just 4 recipients. The group sent more than $270,000 to Bowers's consulting company, as well as some $211,000 to Asha Bandali, a friend of Cullors who co-wrote her memoir. About $205,000 went to a company Cullors operates with her spouse, and about $86,000 was paid to Trap Heels LLC, an entertainment, clothing, and consulting company started by Damon Turner, the father of Patrisse Cullors' child. So that doesn't look good. And it gives the impression of self-dealing, something that hasn't been proven. Again, want to be clear about that. But if you don't want to give that impression, you should have, as some of the activists noted, radical transparency. People deserve to know how that money is being utilized, where that money is going. And so, as a show that's been incredibly supportive of the movement, we've defended Black Lives Matter multiple times in the past, especially against ridiculous, unfounded allegations and assaults from the right wing. I do think it's important to also share this perspective with you, especially because this perspective is coming from local activists on the ground. They want to know what's going on. They want to know who's leading this movement now, where is the money going, and when can we finally get some transparency? And I think they deserve to have all those answers given to them.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges, You got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.